Testing. We are recording this, so it would be helpful if we could use microphones so that we could hear everybody's voice, even for those who are online. So if you could come up maybe like a regular town hall in the movies. We don't have any more extensions for this, so, but we could maybe line up.
So you need to pay attention to what you're doing.
We'll go ahead and start. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Lord, we invite the Holy Spirit in this process as we discern the best way forward for our parishes and our community. And more especially during this month that we remember in a very special way our own identity as Christians and blacks, and even people that you have called us to belong into this family. We ask you to bless each one of us. Help that our words are according to your will, and whatever we say may be pleasing to your ears. For we pray this through Christ our Lord. Amen. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. So thank you so much for your willingness to stay after Mass. I know Sundays can get busy with family and different things we want to do, but this speaks to how important this is for you and for our parish. As most of you know, that we were gathered here in January, and we filled a form that we took your responses to the other churches, and they compiled a report of what the other parishes agreed to move forward. So I'll ask you to turn to page 4 of your document that has been provided to you. So those are the survey results of what you filled in on that day. And in addition to what we feel is also the other parishes, St. Louis and Three Little Flowers, St. James, and St. Francis Xavier. So this is a collection of 5 parishes. I have to say that I was very, very much impressed by your participation. If you look at St. Monica, 80 people participated compared to other parishes. The closest was St. James with 60, and the other one was St. Little Flower, 31, and St. Francis is not even clear how many participated in the process. But I'm glad we were able to participate in this because it's gonna help in the conversation on how this conversation goes. So St. Monica has a key voice in this process. So if you look at the areas that we looked at was parish organization. And so all these parishes seem to agree, or not agree, but seem to have majority of the people say that the best way for parish organization is to explore ways for parishes to better network and collaborate on mission and ministry activities. So 118 people agree that's probably a good way to go. And the second that came close to that is to promote greater lay involvement in the mission and ministry of the parish. So you can tell there's a common language of collaboration when it comes to parish organization. When you go to worship and evangelization, number 2, a majority of the people here, which is 73, and that's D, develop a ministry of young adults aged 20 and 30, and we also say even 40, I remember the conversation, which may be centered on one parish that can serve all parishes in the deanery. So there is that willingness to collaborate together to form our young people. So that seems to be something most parishes would like to see happen. And then we have established teams of parishioners to contact every pastor in the parish roster, as well as former members, to listen and invite them to engage the parishes. I think there is, most of our parishes that we're talking about, they're in neighborhoods where they're aware they're Catholics that have not been coming to Mass, or we have Catholics we haven't seen for a long time, but also we are aware of people moving in who probably are Catholics or maybe not catechized. We don't know, maybe they're Christian, they're still discerning. So most of these parishes do agree that we have an opportunity to reach out. This can ask for these things. And then when it comes to faith formation, Catholic schools, a majority of the parishes say that develop a deanery-wide adult formation opportunities like Bible studies, out and spiritual retreats. So in other words, again, reaching out in a deanery way. In other words, having a deanery-based wide adult faith formation. As most of you know, most of our parishes have just a few. Like here we have only one this year, you know. I don't know other parishes, but they're probably around maybe 2 or 3. Instead of having this adult formation taking place each individual parishes, I think it is more beneficial that they collaborate and form these Catholics for these parishes. And the second take on faith formation in Catholic schools was organize small groups in parishes throughout the deanery to build community and share faith. Basically, they're all more or less the same. In terms of outreach, those in need in our communities, majority of the parishes seem to go with the idea, recognize the role which deanery parishes have played and will continue to play in establishing a visible presence of the church in the central city of Kansas City. In other words, most parishes do agree that we have the obligation, but also the resources to be able to do that if we collaborate together. You know, we're not part of the city that those social needs are needed. So, and one way of staying current and relevant as Catholics is to reach out to those in need. And so do most parishes to agree that's the best way to go. And the second take was access the types of outreach ministries parishes currently providing, more or less the same, but from a deanery point of view. Instead of having, for example, our food pantry here in St. James, they have their own food pantry, and St. Francis Xavier, they so kind of corroborate, because we are basically serving the same people, but if we put our resources together, we can even reach out to more people. And then the final, whatever topic is on community building and communications. So majority of the parishes seem to agree that establishing a committee to seek out, welcome, and invite neighborhood residents. Again, tied to worship and evangelization. Most of us are seeing what's going on in our neighborhoods, people moving in. I think we have a great opportunity to be able to reach out. And then the second of that is meet with new operations, provide them to share their views and talents and become more involved. So that's kind of a snapshot of what parishes think that is the right thing to go. And then with that information in the background, then I'll ask you to go to page 1, which is the map. So one of the proposals that have been made through this process is to combine Deanery 1 and 2. So Deanery 1 is where we belong here at St. Marcus. We have 5 parishes. We have St. Monica, we have St. James, St. Francis Xavier, St. Priest, and St. Louis. That is Deanery 1. And Deanery 2 is the oratory of St. Patrick's Cathedral, Sacred Heart of Guadalupe, Our Lady of Sorrows, Our Lady of Perpetual Help, Our Lady of Good Counsel, Guardian Angels. So yeah, those are the parishes in Dina too. Most of you are aware that some of these parishes are very close to each other. There are some are a mile away. And I'll ask you to turn to page 2 to kind of have a configuration of how that looks like. So if you look in the north part of the city, where we belong, we have the oratory of St. Patrick or St. Patrick's. I think it's off 9th Street. And we have Cathedral, 12th Street. And we have St. Monica, which is 10th Street. So basically just a few blocks from each other. 3 minutes, 4 minutes drive from each of these parishes. And then we have Sacred Heart Guadalupe, which is on the west side of the city, and Our Lady of Sorrows by Crown Center, Hospital Hill area. So those are the northern parts parishes of our city. And then we have the central midtown. We have Our Lady of Perpetual Help, 33rd and Broadway, Our Lady of Good Counsel, 39, and Guardian Angels in Westport. So again, these are parishes you can drive within 2-3 minutes down the line. And then we have the southern sides of the parishes, which is St. James, St. Francis Xavier, St. Louis, and St. Louis. So looking at this configuration and talking about collaboration, these are some of the parishes we collaborate in terms of ministry and evangelization. First of all, because of close proximity, but also the people we serve. So with that in mind, then we turn to, I'll say, page 3, because this kind of narrows down to us. And I'll mention about the other parishes if need be, but narrowing down to St. Monica, how does this affect us? So St. Monica and Our Lady of Sorrows will form a cluster, and I'll explain what that means. Under the leadership of the pastor of St. Monica, all administrative and ministerial activities for both parishes will be conducted through St. Monica. Our Lady of Sorrows will become a sister church to St. Monica. So what that means is St. Monica will remain the way it is as a stand-alone parish, but then Our Lady of Sorrows, which is even a smaller parish than St. Monica, will become a sister parish. In other words, all administrative work will be done from here. They will share a pastor, they will share staff, and basically they're going to remain open just for sacramental needs. They will have masses, everything there, but everything will be run from here. Looking at quick parish facts, I would say you look at the details in terms of number of registered parish household. As of January 2021, we have 250 here at St. Monica, and if you look at the details for Our Lady of Sorrows is 140. Kind of similar. We don't seem like we are attracting as many parishioners as we would like or want, but if we collaborate with Our Lady of Sorrows, hopefully, we'll be able to reach out even more. So that's basically what it is. And of course, it gives details of young first communion, young confirmations, marriages, death, and all that. And we had gone through that in the past. So how does this cluster look like? So as I say, it will be a sister parish, and if you look at the last page, which is page 6, this is how a sister parish or church actually, because it ceases to be a parish and become a church. So when 2 or more parishes are merged, one church is designated as the parish or the mother church, and the others serve as sister churches. So that's common, especially in the country where churches are between and not as many parishioners joining those parishes. So it's common even in our diocese where we have sister parishes run under one pastor and they share staff. So I think that's what I wanted to to share with this, unless someone has a question regarding this. And I can mention maybe a little bit about the other parishes so that you're aware. If you go to page 2, what's going to happen, or the recommendations that have been made for other parishes is the oratorios, which is St. Patrick's will remain as a stand-alone parish. Reason is they are a religious community parish that ministers to the Latin community. So basically, their main apostolate is to those who want to celebrate Mass in Latin. So even though it's very closer to us than even Our Lady of Sorrows, but they are a very unique parish in the people they minister to. Cathedral, being the mother church of the diocese, will remain obviously as a standalone parish. St. Monica, Our Lady of Sorrows will be merged. And Sacred Heart Guadalupe, as many of you know, that there are actually two parishes. There used to be two parishes which were merged to become one parish with a sister church. So Sacred Heart Guadalupe is the mother church, and I mean the shrine of Our Lady of Guadalupe is the sister church. As if you know the configuration, there is probably like half a mile from each other. So that will remain as a single parish. When you come to Our Lady of Perpetual Help, will remain as a standalone parish. Again, because of its uniqueness, it's a religious community church, which means the decisions are not made by the bishop, they're made by the superior in that community. So we still want to continue remaining as a standalone. Our Lady of Good Counsel will be combined with Guardian Angels, so that's the proposal that has been made to those two churches. And then you come to the southern part of the city, St. James, St. Therese, and St. Louis. Okay, I took that back. So St. James and St. Therese will be combined with St. Francis Xavier, and St. Louis will be suppressed as a parish. It will no longer be a parish. So those are the recommendations that have been made. But that's only recommendations. It doesn't mean decisions are made. Yes. So St. James and St. Therese will be combined with St. Francis Xavier. And St. Louis will be closed. No.
Could you repeat the question?
Oh, you want? Okay, the question she's asking: what will happen of St. James and St. Therese and St. Louis buildings? Okay. So when we talk about merging St. James and St. Therese, the parishes will remain as they are, but they will be ministered under St. Francis Xavier. But St. Louis will be suppressed. In other words, it will cease to be a parish or a church. Correct. Yes.
I noticed at the top it says recommendation. Who's making the recommendation?
Okay.
It's up to you, Mike. Yeah, talk so the people can hear you online.
Oh. I know it's been several times. The recommendations saying my already started with one with plus, but whose recommendations are those?
So basically, as you know, we have a consulting firm that we're working with. They looked at the data we have in the diocese. They are the one actually directing this process. And also the survey that we did, and after putting all that, this is what the recommendations they came with.
Can I ask you another question?
Yes.
Do we have any input to this firm? Because my concern is Our Lady of Sorrow will still have its name, Our Lady of Sorrow. Why not, if you're going to end up, and I'm concerned about the whole congregation coming to St. Monica, and that becomes St. Monica. Is that a recommendation that we can make?
Yeah, my understanding that the sister parish will still remain open. So the parishioners won't come here and become part of St. Monica. What will happen is that We will share staff between the pastor to secretary, bookkeeping, and all that. So they will remain as an open parish. What will happen, they will not be referred as a parish anymore because they'll be under St. Monica. They will have we'll probably have a common parish council and 2 different finance councils. That's what probably a sister parish will look like.
On the consultants who are making this, when I look at this, I see this as the same as what's happening in the state of Kansas, that black churches are being divided without any understanding of the role of the black church in that community, because now we're Lady of Sorrows and St. Teresa and St. James and St. Louis, they're going to be under St. Francis Xavier, and it seems like we're losing what makes these churches unique, special. And are the consultants aware of this role, of the role of the church?
That was an issue brought up, and the very first recommendation when we went to the follow-up meeting, when we went to the first meeting, was to combine all the black churches, and everybody pushed back on that because they were encouraging diversity among the group and everything, and so that's one of the reasons it went that way. All of that was expressed and looked at, and is not considered a real division because St. Monica is a strong black parish, and it will stay a strong black parish, and so you will still have that. But the people thought that they were isolating us with the way that they had that first proposal out there. Just clump all the blacks together and let this happen another way. So that was a concern, and it was expressed.
Okay, I'm just a little confused because I thought that one of the problems was we have all these different parishes and you're paying all these light bills and these gas bills and, I thought we were trying to come up with a way to merge like we did with Risen Christ. And one of the buildings shut down, 2 came together. I don't see how I don't know how to say what I'm trying to say. I don't see how you're accomplishing anything when you're leaving all these buildings open, still paying all these utilities, and what is this accomplishing? I mean, I see what you're talking about closing one building, St. Louis, but like Our Lady of Sorrows and us clustering, both. Does anybody know what I'm trying to say?
Oh, yeah.
But I just don't see how that's going to help. Yeah.
One of my understandings, and Father, correct me if I'm wrong, when we were in our meeting, we asked for a deep definition of what a sister church is because we wanted to understand the role of a sister church. And what I understand is eventually that sister church dies.
Exactly.
That's the role of that sister church. And so you build up your community by you coming together and building your resources and stuff. That was how so they are explaining to us of what a real sister church is. So it doesn't stay open forever. And it's almost like it gives them a chance to readjust or whatever instead of just cutting me off at the knees or something like that. That was my understanding of what the sister church is. So it wouldn't be there forever. It's like a softening to the heart.
Every church has its own flavor. Every church has its own unique membership. And I know, okay, when Risen Christ and St. Monica came together, St. Joseph came together, we were 2 black churches, but where we had two different identities, two different styles, but it worked. It worked, and I loved it. But I'm just kind of feeling sorry for our lady songs. You know, I don't know what to say. I'm just trying to express my opinion. Okay.
One of the things you have to realize, this is a draft. There is nothing final here. And so what I need you guys to do, I handed out some notebook paper. So as we go through this process so that I can hear everyone, because not everyone stands up and speak up, there are 3 questions that I need you to answer. Those are the questions that I have to take back to the group when we meet. And these are the questions. The first one being your reaction or response to this proposed configuration. I'm hearing them, but I also need you to write them down. The second question is very similar to the first one, and is any changes or recommendations for the next draft of the plan? Remember, this is just a draft. The bishop has the final say-so, and the final plan will be put out mid-May from the bishop. Everything that's happening now, he is aware of it, and so when they get this proposal, it was shared with him, and then they move forward. But it's just a draft. And then the third question being comments on the ministry recommendations for the parish network, which we'll talk about in a little bit, of sharing the network, which Father already mentioned, say like if you share adult formation and you share youth groups and things like that to make it better, and really helping each other and taking away some of the individual expenses.
I don't understand that this is all about buildings and finances or lack of peace. Is the reason that we're doing this. And that's usually what it is, lack of clarity.
Yes, I think there is not only the peace, but also the demographics change, and so there are a lot of layers into it. I don't want to point out it's just one reason why this is happening. It's a process of many other things that, yeah, sure, the shortage of clarity for sure, because it's very hard to run a parish without a priest in many ways because of sacramental needs, but also the finances, the demographic change in different parishes, and just as we mentioned, like St. Louis, its demographic has changed a lot in the last 20 years, so to say, and maybe there is not much, so to say, like hope of keeping it open while it's incurring debt to itself. So there are a lot of layers to that.
Father, one of the things that's been bothering me is that it just doesn't make sense. The question about consultants managing this and then turn it over to the bishop. And the 2 or 3 people that we've had negotiate, I don't know to the extent that they've been able to get the kind of quality answers from the consultants or the diocese. Again, the first letter that we received suggested that it was about what he last said, staffing a priest. Staffing a priest is inconsistently managed by the diocese. There's some churches, and we know one, who sends a priest down here every time we need one, Redemptrix. And they probably have how many priests on it? 4. I asked the question about when you go, find out if they've got a matrix of staff patterns so we can see, like they chose these maps and show us how many priests are in each parish. And then we can talk about equity. I mean, black people, we're now at a point in life where we've gone through so much stress, it's hard as to not only get our arms around this, but understand the why. And if the why is about making sure that there is equitable positioning of priests, and we only got 1 and they got 4, I guarantee you there are other churches that got more too. I guarantee you, for example, some churches have been left out of this whole matrix that are right in this region, the spine of the community. On 31st and Paseo, St. Vincent de Paul is one of those standalone churches that our priest has just described. But they're a Catholic church. Well, my point is, it's not equitably managed. It doesn't really make sense. So when, again, Ms. Scott asked that question about why and how we can look at, some churches being left out, Our Lady of Sorrows, who might wind up being closed. I mean, it's really fragile that we might wind up in. I think that's behind everybody's mind. Are they going to wind up closing us? They closed our schools. All the black parishes that we talked about, St. Louis, had a school. We had a school. I used to play football against it. The school was here. Out in that park out there. And now the school has been. So again, we're in a fragile timeline. And we don't know if, even if we submit something, do we have any guarantees? Do we really have the faith of our diocese that's going to stand behind a black parish that's strong? I said to Curtis years ago about St. Monica's strength, St. Joseph's strength, when they were talking about closing potentially and merging potentially black churches. St. Louis now is one of those churches that they're talking about closing. And I told Curtis that, St. Joseph was a strong parish that had financial width, that had breadth of survival. And we have survived. But do we have any real guarantees? You might leave and we might wind up with another priest, but do we have a guarantee that we will have what we have? I mean, at the end of the day, nothing is guaranteed, but at the end of the day, why are they wiping out black parishes? Why are they giving us no place and every other church someplace? If you go, I bet you if you go to any of these white parishes out here, the only parish that we're winding up seeing a lot of foreign priests that come here are the black parishes. Some of these white parishes never had an Asian priest, a Hispanic priest, or a black priest. We're the only ones that are tampered with. I find it very difficult to really believe in the process. I think the process is not only faulty, but contrived. Mr. Brooks, I think it's about control, and I don't think we really have a control on our own destiny. And it's a sad thing to say when we've been survivors of slavery and all kinds of atrocities, and now we're worrying about not only what's in our seat, but do we have work? I mean, I don't really want to fill out anything, nor do I really trust the process. And if y'all close this church, I'm going to go to a Baptist church. I can tell you what Mike's going to do. I'm a Baptist.
My name is Michelle Feiner, and I grew up in St. Joseph, that church over there. And I went to kindergarten, 8th grade there, and I love this church. When they came up with that process to merge all the Catholic, because there's a lot of like Catholic churches, that's when I left and went to St. James. Okay, so I've been at St. James for 27 years. You all's reputation, I came back during COVID. Your reputation in St. Monica is all over this city. Everyone knows this is a strong church. No one, I'm in a Methodist church and they talk about St. Monica. They're not talking about the 8 o'clock service where I go is excellent. 10 o'clock is probably jumping. But I'll tell you, you all have a very good reputation, strong reputation. I doubt seriously if that bishop is going to close this church. Exactly. Too much history here and too much this whole community. Look at you guys. Most churches don't have as many people coming back to this community. And you all are strong people. You all live in Lee Summit, Raymore, Gladstone, Kansas, all over. And you come back at 16% You all had something to fight for. And everybody in this Kansas City area know about St. Monica. I say St. Joseph, they say St. Monica. But you all have a very strong reputation, so don't you ever think people do not look at you all. You all are just as strong as any other church. And don't you ever think they're going to. That man knows if he closes into it, people will actually mark for that. Because this church is St. Louis was a good church. Almost kept Black Catholic churches were strong. But some way they kept this. They did. Nothing was wrong with that church that I grew up in either, though. Right next door. I went to mass every day over there. But this is a beautiful, you all got a nice community. You all came together and y'all made it work. So do not ever think they're going to close this church. There's too much going on here, and you all got strong members, and you love God first. God is first, and that's why you all come down here. That's only because none of y'all live around here. But you all love God, and you all serve. You serve God. That's why you're here. And I like what he said. He wants us to not just listen to everything. And I go to other Catholic white churches, and they have different people there too, but they're not like this church. Everyone knows about this church. Don't you? Everyone knows about St. Monica. You're down here north, and everyone knows about you. Very good reputation.
I don't know if I actually need this, but I'm going to use it. Oh, you're recording. Okay. First of all, just give me a moment. And this is a real emotional conversation for me. My biggest problem is this. I don't want to talk about DEI. I don't want to talk about racism,